Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show, and welcome back to the Radio Northwest Network, where for the last 25 years or so, we've endeavored to serve the people of the Pacific Northwest with honestly provocative talk on a daily basis. And I want to talk about one of the dirty little secrets about government is that no matter how much money a government agency has in the bank, it will always ask for more. And what we should do as citizens is say, if you've already got that money, and you're not putting it to good use, then we're not going to give you any more. And if you come for more, you better justify what you want to spend it on and why you're asking for it. That would be my approach, and I suspect it may be similar to the approach of John Lee, retired airline pilot, reporter, and candidate for the Washington House of Reps, District 18, Position 2. John, welcome back.
Hey, Lars, happy Friday. Always happy to be on with you and your listeners.
What'd you think about the results of Tuesday's primary?
I was ecstatic with it. Basically, I got 3 times the number of votes of my Republican opponent. I was delighted overall in Washington State, and for our Clark County Republican Party endorsed candidates, we did very well. So we're looking forward to going forward to November and hopefully having an awful lot of wins in November, of course, including President Donald Trump.
Yeah, President Donald Trump, Governor Dave Reichert, would like to see Congressman Joe Kent, and I'd like to see State Rep John Lee. So tell my audience what they ought to know, not just about what TriMet, the big transit agency for Portland, is doing, burning through $1 billion in the next decade, but what C-Tran is doing at the same time.
So C-Tran recently released their annual report. I went through it, and then I decided to do a comparison with TriMet. C-Tran has so much cash in the bank that they could operate for 3 years without any taxes or passenger fares, just using their cash on hand. Unbelievable.
They sound like the Harvard endowment, where Harvard wouldn't even have to charge tuition, except that C-Tran is not nearly as highly ranked as Harvard is. And I don't think much of Harvard either. How do they explain having all this cash?
Well, in a sense, they don't, other than when you dig into the details, both transit agencies at C-Tran in Clark County and TriMet in Portland have received a ton of cash from the federal government during the pandemic, and both federal and state governments for various boondoggle projects over the years. And C-Tran has used that cash to add to their balance sheet. A decade ago, they had $119 million in assets on their books, and now they've got $423 million. And it's like, how can you do that when your passenger fares only cover 5 to 15% of your operating costs? It's unbelievable, and yet they've been able to add to the balance sheet, and they've got so much that they can keep running empty buses for a long, long time without needing any more taxpayer subsidies.
See, and I wish at least an agency like that would start to say, hold on, we've got all this extra cash. I'm not saying reduce fares, because I know they might be inclined to do that, because I want to see the people who ride the buses pay a greater percentage. When you've got, skin in the game, you tend to care about the kind of service you get. When you're not paying anything, you do not. And I know people who say, well, no, the bus is already too expensive. It's already too expensive, and you're not even paying 85% of the cost of operating it and 0 of the cost of buying the buses themselves. Is anybody on their board of directors questioning why they're holding $0.4 billion?
Absolutely not. In fact, they love to tout it. C-Tran has won awards from the federal government for being one of the best operated transit agencies in the nation. And so they love to brag about the fact that their financial balance sheet is so healthy. But the honest answer to that is they're getting it by that healthy balance sheet because they're picking people's pockets from both the state and federal level, instead of more wisely using the buses. And the saddest part is that ridership is down. As you and I have talked about many, many times, comparing ridership before the pandemic, it's down 30 to 50% at both agencies. And when you go back and look a decade or more ago, ridership is down 50% or more. And
wow.
Common sense people want to use their cars. And therefore, a delightful article by the Washington Policy Center's Charles Prestrud recently labeled the death spiral in transit agencies nationwide. People are refusing to use mass transit for their mode of transportation.
And by the way, let me throw another element into that. They're refusing to use transit, which means in most cases they're opting for a car or a truck of their own. And the direct day-to-day cost of buying fuel is about 40% higher than it was 3 years ago. So even with much higher fuel costs, people are still saying, I ain't taking the bus.
Yeah, exactly right. And in fact, Prestrud noted that in spite of higher costs, not only for people choosing to use their cars, but that at these transit agencies, their productivity is down. We're paying more than ever on a per passenger carried basis, and yet the number of people they're carrying is going down. In the state of Washington, the cost has gone from $2.1 billion in 2012 to $5.2 billion in 2022 for all of our transit agencies, and yet the number of people they carry on an hourly basis was 31 passengers per hour a decade ago, and it's now just below 16 passengers an hour. Absolutely ridiculous to carry so few people for such an outrageous cost.
Well, and by the way, John, one of the things I'd love to have you put to rest, we've mentioned it before, but I'd love you to put some numbers together. There's this old meme that says, well, old, dirty, stinky, buses are better because they carry a lot of people and the amount of pollution they put out and the amount of fuel they burn. Except they're not taking into account modern automobiles that are as efficient as they've ever been in American history, and they are as low in pollution as they've ever been in American history. Even when you compare it that way, the transit agencies are usually not superior to, if you calculate it as passengers carried per pound of pollution. You'd say, oh, no, transit's much better on pollution and fuel use. I don't think that's true anymore because of the efficiency of modern automobiles. The transit agencies don't beat the average private car. So as far as I'm concerned, ditch the whole system. And if you have to, subsidize Uber and Lyft for those people who actually need to get somewhere and rebuild a system that way and spend a lot less.
That's exactly right, buddy. And the easy example to that is that Washington State has eliminated their vehicle emission testing because cars are so clean. They no longer do that, number one. And your focus on Uber and Lyft is exactly right. We could subsidize those people who truly need and want point-to-point service by just giving them a public-funded transit card, i.e., here, call.
I don't like the subsidies, but if we have to subsidize anything, let's do it the most efficient way. That's John Lee. He's running for the Washington House of Reps. He'll be on the ballot in November, District 18, Position 2, and I voted for him.